I'm Rebecca Martinez. I'm 28, and I feel like I've shattered. 3 weeks ago, no, that's not even true. 3 weeks ago, this waking nightmare began. I opened my eyes in a hospital room, and the first thing I felt wasn't a dull hum of pain, but a chilling, empty dread. My collarbone was broken. My ribs felt like 3 splinters digging into my lungs with every breath, and my head was a thick, black fog, impossible to penetrate without pain. The doctors muttered something about a possible hemorrhage, their faces masks of professional concern. And my Emma, my 6-week-old baby, all warm, milky breath and clinging fingers, was with a stranger. With the stranger I hired, her voice thick with panic and steel wool, while rescuers cut up my Honda to pull what was left of me from the pile of metal. It wasn't my choice. Not my fault. I was just driving home, my shopping list on my mind, and the thought that the milk would probably only last an hour. And then that truck, that gray colossus, sped through a red light going a full 60 miles an hour and slammed into me, into my world, from the left side. The impact was like an explosion from within, a screeching sound you could feel in your bones, the sharp slam of an airbag hitting your face with the smell of gunpowder and hopelessness. And then, only darkness. Death, impenetrable. And somewhere in its very depths, as if from another dimension, the wail of a siren. I came to in the ambulance. The air smelled of ozone and blood. A rubber mask, cold and alien, covered my face. The first thing that burst from me through her wasn't my name, not a cry for help. It was maternal instinct, screaming in pure, primal terror. "Girl, baby, she's 6 weeks old, at home with a neighbor. Do you need someone?" The paramedic, a woman with tired but incredibly kind eyes, squeezed my hand. Her touch was an anchor in this raging sea of pain. "We'll help you get it all sorted out. Try to breathe evenly." But how could I breathe evenly? My Emma didn't know a bottle. She knew only me, my warmth, my heartbeat. Mrs. Chin, our sweet ancient neighbor, had agreed to sit with her for just 20 minutes, just long enough for a quick trip to the store. 40 had passed since then. And here I lay on a gurney, my body being wheeled further and further away from my baby. From the ambulance, my fingers shaking from shock and adrenaline, I dialed my mom. She answered on the 3rd ring. The sound of splashing water and soft music played in the background. "Rebecca, I'm at the spa. What's wrong?" "Mom," my voice trembled treacherously. "I've been in an accident. A bad one. I'm in the ambulance. Emma's with Mrs. Chin. Please, can you go get her? I don't know when I—" An accident. A heavy, familiar sigh. The sigh of a woman burdened by my problems. "Rebecca, are you sure it's that serious? You know your penchant for the dramatic." My ears began to ring. I heard the clink of glasses on the other end of the line. Someone was laughing. "Mom, my car was totaled. I may have a brain injury. They're taking me to the county line. Please, just take Emma." "To the county seat? It's an hour away. I have a seaweed wrap right now. Can't Marcus do that?" "Marcus is in Dallas. His plane is in 5 hours. Mom, please. She's 6 weeks old. She needs—" "Wait," muffled voices. My sister Vanessa laughed, light and carefree. Then Mom was back on the phone. "Rebecca, Vanessa and I are leaving for a Caribbean cruise tomorrow. We're having a whole spa day today. It's all paid for." The pain in her chest became sharp and stabbing. And it wasn't just her ribs. Something inside her snapped. "Mom, this is an emergency. Your granddaughter—" "Your sister," her voice became icy and precise, "never has emergencies like this. Vanessa has 2 children, and she's never caused me to panic about an accident. You need to be more organized." Something inside me broke completely. I didn't plan on being hit by a truck. Responsible mothers always have a backup plan. I can't just drop everything every time you have another crisis. We've been planning this cruise for 8 months. The ambulance jerked sharply, hitting a bump. A blinding white bolt of pain shot through me. I screamed. "Are you even listening to me?" she continued, as if she hadn't heard my groan. "That's why I'm worried. You're a constant mess, and you always need rescuing. I raised you to be independent." The paramedic looked at me. Her kind eyes were filled with shock and pity. She'd heard everything. "I'm not asking you to cancel the cruise." I squeezed the words out as if each one were a bloody shard. "To sit with her for a few hours while I'm on the boat tomorrow, Rebecca. I need to get ready. Dad and I deserve this break. We won't let your poor planning ruin everything." My poor planning. "Mom, a truck hit me." My voice broke into a hoarse, frantic scream. "And I'm sure you're fine. You said so, right? You're always so dramatic. Remember your appendicitis that turned out to be gas? Or your pneumonia, a common cold?" I closed my eyes. Those old childhood grievances I'd thought had healed resurfaced, fresh and burning. She always brushed them off, always got irritated. "It's different now. It's always different for you. Okay, I have to go. My wrap's ruined. Call some friends or get a sitter. You make a good living, right? That'll solve the problem." A click. Dead silence. I stared at the phone screen, at the smiling photo of her from last Christmas. She was holding Emma, her first granddaughter, and looking into the camera with such pride. I'd thought then, I'd hoped, that something would change with the birth of the child, that she'd soften, become a grandmother. I was a fool. The paramedic touched my arm again. Maybe there's someone else? I frantically scrolled through my contacts. Alicia is in Seattle. Marcus's parents are in Arizona. Mrs. Chin is 72. She won't last another hour. And then I found it. A business card I'd accidentally saved. A half-forgotten note on my phone from my pregnancy. Elite Newborn Care. 24/7 emergency care. We called. Me, with the help of this kind woman who held the phone for me. They answered right away. "Elite Newborn Care, Monica here." "I need help," the words rushed out, driven by panic. "I'm in an ambulance. There's an accident. My 6-week-old daughter is alone with a neighbor. We need someone now. She's breastfeeding, only breastfeeding." The calm, professional voice on the other end of the line became my second anchor. "We'll send a specialist within 45 minutes. Address?" Sobbing, I dictated Mrs. Chin's address. Monica asked clear, calm questions about Emma's health, about things, about the hospital. "Our Claudia will be here in 40 minutes. She's a nurse with 15 years of experience. She'll coordinate the milk supply with the hospital. Don't worry, we'll take care of your daughter." How much is it?" "The emergency rate is $75 an hour, minimum 4 hours. But right now, your job is to let yourself be treated. We'll take care of everything." And then I cried. Not from the pain, but from the fact that complete strangers were willing to help me without reproach, without conditions, simply because it was their job, because they understood. "Thank you," I whispered into the phone. "Thank you." "Everything will be fine, Mommy. We'll take care of her like she's our own." And then a year condensed into a few hours of hospital hell. The bright, piercing light, the beeping of monitors, the scurrying shadows in white coats. They took me to CT scans, x-rays, poked me with needles, and through the drug-induced fog in my head floated one absolutely clear and unbearable knowledge. My own mother had said no. When the surgeon came in to stitch up the wound on my forehead, the phone rang. "Marcus? Marcus, honey." "Oh my God, Becky, I just landed. Your messages. Are you okay? Emma, where are you?" Stuttering, choking, and crying, I told him everything. The truck, the hospital, my mother's refusal, a strange woman named Claudia who is probably now rocking our daughter somewhere in our house. He was silent for a second. Then his voice, usually so soft and balanced, became low, thick with disbelief and rage. "She refused? Just said no? She has a cruise tomorrow, right?" "I don't care if she's meeting the Pope himself," Marcus growled into the phone, his voice, usually so controlled, filled with such primal rage that I felt calmer. "You were in an accident." I heard him catch his breath, heard the hum of the airport behind him. I'm taking the first flight back. I'll be there in 3 hours. And what about your presentation? I breathed out, still clinging to the remnants of normalcy. Screw the presentation, he snapped, and there wasn't a shred of doubt in his tone. My wife's in the hospital. And then I cried. Real, quiet, cleansing tears, flowing not from the pain in my ribs or from fear for Emma, but because Marcus's instant, unconditional reaction was a fiery letter seared into the background of my mother's icy indifference. She showed me what love should really look like, what family should look like. And this contrast made the wound my mother left behind even deeper, even more unbearable. After they finally left me alone in the dimly lit room for overnight observation, the adrenaline subsided and an icy, sober clarity set in. I'd done what I'd been thinking about for 9 years, what I'd been terrified of for 9 years of my adult life. I opened my banking app, and my fingers, still bruised from the blow, confidently found the automatic payments section. There it was, as old as time, the transfer I'd set up back when I was 19, when, with my first paycheck after college, I overheard my parents whispering about their mortgage problems after my father was laid off. $4,500. Every month, like clockwork, 108 months straight. I never told them. The payments came from a secret account I created specifically, and from there, straight to their mortgage company. They thought it was an increase in my father's pension or my mother's bonus. They didn't ask questions. They simply reaped the benefits of their sudden financial stability. This money didn't just cover their house. It covered their car, their bills, their carefree life. It was this $4,500 a month that allowed them to go to the spa, plan cruises, and spend mindlessly at stores with Vanessa. It was this $4,500 a month that allowed my father to retire early. $4,500 times 108 months, $486,000. I paid almost $500,000 for their comfort, and my mother couldn't give me 3 hours. 3 hours so I could know my newborn daughter was safe while they were picking me up. I clicked Cancel Autopay. The system asked for confirmation. I confirmed, without hesitation. Then I did the following. I opened a new savings account. I called it Emma's Future, and I set up an automatic transfer, the same $4,500, but now it would go every month, not into the bottomless pit of their ingratitude, but into my daughter's account. My daughter, whom my mother had so easily abandoned. My finger hovered over the save button for only a second. I clicked. A nurse came into the room to check my blood pressure. "You look better," she remarked. "You've even got some color back." "I just made a decision I should have made a long time ago," I said quietly. She smiled, and her smile held a simple human wisdom. Those decisions are usually the best ones. It was around 8 o'clock when there was another knock on the door. I was expecting Marcus, but instead, a tall, fit man of about 70 entered the room. Gray, perfectly coiffed hair, piercing blue eyes, and a tweed cardigan he wore even in the California heat. Grandfather, my mother's father, the man who taught me how to tie fishing knots, who secretly paid for my textbooks during difficult times, and who always gave me an envelope with $200 on my birthday for stupid things. "Grandfather," I tried to sit up, and the pain in my collarbone became a recurring theme. "How are you?" "Mrs. Chin called me," he said, pulling a chair closer to the bed. His movements were precise, measured. "She said you were in an accident and that my daughter refused to come see the baby. She overheard you on the phone when you were picking up Emma before the ambulance left." Yes, Mrs. Chin was there when Claudia, the caregiver, arrived. She must have heard everything. "Grandfather, I'm fine, really. Emma's with a professional. Everything's under control." "Stop." He stopped me gently but firmly. "Don't do this. Don't downplay what happened. Don't defend her." He paused, looking at me long and hard. Then he said, "Grandma and I paid for that cruise." I blinked, not understanding. "What?" The Caribbean cruise your mother's been raving about for the past few months? We gave it to them for their anniversary. Premium package, $12,000. He shook his head, his eyes filled with bitter irony. I thought I was giving them a nice gift. I didn't realize I was funding their excuse to abandon you and the baby. You couldn't have known that. I called your mother an hour ago. His voice lost its warmth and turned steely. I told her I knew everything. Do you know what she said? I remained silent. My heart sank. She said you're always overreacting, that you're fine, and that it's time you learned to be independent. He leaned forward, his gaze piercing. And then she added, Emma isn't my responsibility. Rebecca chose to have a child herself. Let her deal with the consequences. The words hung in the air, pounding my temples like a new, more brutal blow. Consequences? I whispered. She called my daughter a consequence? That's when I told her the cruise was canceled. My eyes widened. Grandpa? I called the company. I canceled the reservation. As the person who paid for the trip, I have that right. The money will be returned to my card. He chuckled, but there was nothing humorous in it. So your mother and father won't be sailing anywhere tomorrow. You didn't have to do that. You do, he interrupted, carefully taking my hand, avoiding the IV needle. Rebecca, I have to tell you something. Before your grandmother left, she made me promise to look after you. She said she saw how your mother treated you differently than she treated Vanessa. Treacherous tears welled up in my eyes again. I thought maybe she was just worried, but over the years I've begun to notice this difference. You're criticized for things your sister is praised for. Your victories go unnoticed, hers are celebrated. You're always expected to understand, while she's allowed to be selfish. She's just like that, I breathed weakly, repeating this self-justifying mantra for the umpteenth time. She's what we all allowed her to be, Grandpa corrected sternly. But that's over. Not after today. There was another knock on the door. This time, it was Marcus. He stood there in a rumpled traveling suit, a bouquet of ridiculously bright flowers in one hand and a suitcase in the other. His face, usually so calm, was contorted with fatigue and silent panic. Seeing me, he froze, and only then did relief appear in his eyes. I'm fine, I managed to say before he gently, like crystal, touched my forehead with his lips. We're fine. Grandfather stood up. I'll leave you. But Rebecca, before I go, tell me, is there anything else? Anything I should know? I hesitated, looking at his serious face. And then I spilled the beans. About the $4,500 a month. About 9 years of quiet financial sacrifice. About canceling the payment just a few hours ago. Grandfather's face turned stony. You've been paying for their house and car all these years. They didn't know. $4,500 a month. 9 years, he instantly did the calculation in his head. That's almost $500,000. $48,600, I nodded. Marcus looked at me, and his gaze held not reproach, but deep, stunned pain. You never told me. I never told anyone. They needed help, and I could give it. That's all. Grandfather was silent for a long time. Then he asked quietly, but every syllable in his voice cut like a blade. Did they ever thank you? Did they ever acknowledge that they felt better? They didn't know it was me, but they knew their situation had improved. They knew they had extra money. And they never asked where it came from? Never considered that maybe they shouldn't spend so thoughtlessly what had fallen like manna from heaven? I'd never looked at it that way. Now, the realization seared me. They just spent it, I said slowly. Cruises, shopping, spas. They helped Vanessa with the down payment on the house. I trailed off, the monstrous irony finally sinking in. They helped Vanessa buy the house with my money. And when you were wrecked, leaving your 6-week-old motherless, they couldn't even give you 3 hours? My grandfather's voice grew low and dangerous. For 9 years, she borrowed $500,000 from you, and she couldn't give you 3 hours. He stood up abruptly, pulling his phone out of his pocket. I'm making one call. You rest. He He stepped out into the hallway, but the door didn't close all the way, and his voice, harsh and implacable, reached me through the crack. "Patricia, it's Dad. No, we're not talking about the cruise anymore. I'm calling about something else. About something I just found out." A long pause, during which I could almost physically feel my mother freeze on the other end of the line. "Did you know Rebecca has been paying your mortgage for the last 9 years?" Silence. Then my grandfather's voice grew even harsher, with an icy, crushing fury. $4,500 a month, Patricia. $486,000. Your daughter, whom you called hysterical today and refused help to, has supported you since she was 19. Another pause, more oppressive. She canceled her payments today, lying in her hospital bed after you abandoned her and your granddaughter. A shrill, inarticulate shriek came from the other end of the line. My grandfather let her speak. And then he spoke the words that forever changed the balance of power in our family. "You have 24 hours to fix this, Patricia." My grandfather's voice in the hallway sounded like the blow of a cold, sharpened scalpel. 24 hours to apologize to your daughter, to finally truly meet your granddaughter, to show her even a shred of the gratitude and love she deserves. If not, I'm changing my will. Everything I was going to leave you, the house in Pasadena, the stocks, the bonds, it all goes to Rebecca and Emma. Even through the door, I could hear the shrill, hysterical screech coming from the phone. "I'm not bluffing," Grandfather interrupted, his tone laced with icy contempt. "I've already called Gerald Hoffman, my lawyer. He's preparing the amendments for tomorrow morning. Do you think I'd leave my fortune to someone who treats her own daughter like a nuisance? Who calls her granddaughter a consequence?" His voice dropped, becoming quiet and terrifying. "Your mother would be ashamed of you. Know that I am." The click of the disconnected receiver sounded like a death sentence. A deafening, stunned silence fell over the room. Marcus and I simply stared at each other, speechless. Grandfather returned. He looked 10 years older, hunched over by the weight of his decision, but his eyes blazed with a firm, implacable determination. "This woman is my daughter, and I love her," he said quietly. "But love doesn't mean putting up with what's unacceptable. Your grandmother taught me that." "Grandfather, the will. You don't have to," I began, but my voice betrayed me with a tremor. "It's already decided in my head and heart. Whether she apologizes or not, you'll get the bulk of it, but I'm giving her these 24 hours, because your grandmother would want me to give my daughter one last chance to do the right thing." He leaned over and gently kissed my forehead. His lips were dry and warm. "Now rest. I'm going to meet my great-granddaughter. Marcus, text me the address of that service." After he left, Marcus carefully, trying not to disturb my bandages, lay down next to me on the narrow hospital bed. He hugged me as if I were fragile glass about to shatter. $500,000, he whispered into my hair. "Becky, we could have paid off our mortgage early." "I know. We could have started a trust for Emma the day she was born." "I know. Why didn't you tell me?" I was silent for a long moment, listening to the steady beat of his heart in my ear. "Because then I would have had to admit out loud what I've always felt but was afraid to say, that I buy their love, that I pay a monthly fee for the right to be their daughter, and that no matter how much I pay, it will never be enough for them to love me the way they loved Vanessa." He squeezed me tighter, and there was no reproach in that hug, only a bottomless, quiet sadness. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely. "For what?" "For not seeing this sooner, for not protecting you from them. You protected me. You rushed halfway across the country, abandoned everything. That's just basic human concern, Beck, the bare minimum." "Exactly," I breathed, and the last illusion dissolved in that word. And my mother couldn't even provide that. My phone rang around 10 o'clock. Her name flashed on the screen like an alarm. I declined. She called again. I declined again. Then the messages poured in. "Rebecca, we urgently need to talk about this monstrous misunderstanding. Your grandfather has gone insane and is behaving erratically. I never refused to help you. You simply didn't give me a chance to explain everything. You're destroying a family for no reason." I blocked the number. My chest felt empty and cold. Vanessa called next. Her voice cut into the silence of the room like a knife. "What the hell have you done?" she hissed. "Mom's completely hysterical. The cruise is canceled. Grandpa's threatening to disinherit her. And all because of your scratch on the bumper and Mom's inability to bolt at your command." "It's not a scratch on the bumper," I replied, surprisingly even-tempered. "I have 3 broken ribs and a collarbone. And a concussion." "Well, if you can start such wars, it can't be that bad. Can you imagine how Mom looked forward to this vacation? How she dreamed of it?" "Working, Vanessa? Dreaming of it?" Something inside me broke, and I almost laughed, but the laugh came out bitter and prickly. I paid their mortgage for 9 years, $4,500, every month. That's why Mom can afford not to work. That's why Dad retired early. That's why they gave you the money for a down payment on your house. There was a stony silence on the other end of the line. "You're lying. Ask Grandpa, or, better yet, ask Mom. Ask her where she thinks the extra $4,500 a month has come from all these years." "Even if it's true," her voice lost its conviction, "it's true. That doesn't give you the right to manipulate the old man. He's out of his mind. He's more in his mind than any of us. He's finally seen things for what they are." Her tone became caustic again. "I'm not the one blackmailing my own mother with her inheritance." "No, you're just the one who gets everything handed to you on a silver platter, while I silently pay for it. The golden child who can do no wrong, while I'm always the problem." I took a deep, trembling breath. "I've had enough, Vanessa. I've had enough of funding your fairy tale. I've had enough of being the family ATM. I've had enough of crumbs while you're pampered and cherished simply for breathing. You're crazy. Mom loves you. Mom tolerates me as long as I'm useful. Today, I learned my worth. 3 hours. She couldn't spare 3 hours for her granddaughter because she had spa plans. And I might have internal bleeding." Vanessa fell silent. Then her voice sounded cold and distant. "You know what? Fine. Take Grandpa's money. Bask in your role as the victim. But don't expect me to hold your hand when you're alone, because you'll push everyone away." The disconnection resounded loudly. Marcus had been holding my hand silently the entire time. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I said, and to my surprise, I felt it was true. Somewhere deep inside, through the pain and fatigue, a strange light feeling was surging. Actually, yes. The next morning, I was discharged with a whole stack of strict instructions and prescriptions. Marcus brought Emma. When I held her in my arms for the first time in 2 days, holding her healthy side to my chest, the world narrowed to this warm bundle, fragrant with milk and childhood. She was beautiful. Claudia, the caregiver, turned out to be a guardian angel in professional attire. She handed us a meticulous journal and bottles of carefully labeled expressed milk. "You have a wonderful daughter," she said, getting ready to leave, "and you're a strong mother. Few could have so calmly organized care while lying in an ambulance." "They helped me," I replied. "Thank you for being there when my bloodline wasn't." She smiled sadly and wisely. "Family is those who come when called. Remember that." A forest of flowers awaited us at home, from friends, colleagues, neighbors. Not a single one from my parents or sister. Not a single line. But there was a gift from my grandfather. A large cardboard box with a simple note on the top. For Emma's future, because she deserves grandparents who choose her first. Love, Grandpa Joe. Inside were savings bonds, $50,000. I burst into tears, not from grief, but from aching, bitter gratitude. 24 hours passed. No call, no apology, only stony silence. My grandfather's lawyer confirmed the will had been changed. Rebecca and Emma Martinez were the primary heirs. My mother received a symbolic $10,000, enough for a nice vacation, but not enough to support the lifestyle she'd become accustomed to, thanks to my money. 2 weeks after the accident, as I was slowly recovering at home, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. I knew who it was. "Rebecca, there's been a mistake." My mother's voice was strained, full of panic. "The mortgage payment hasn't gone through, and the car payment too. Could you check on your end? Maybe there's a glitch in the system?" I took a deep breath, looking at Emma sleeping in the chaise lounge. "There's no mistake, Mom. I canceled the payments." What are you—" A slow, terrible realization crept into her voice. "Wait, was it you this whole time?" "Since I was 19. But we thought it was a supplement to my father's pension." His pension barely covered the utilities. I covered everything else. For 9 years. "Rebecca, you can't just stop this." Her whisper became shrill, filled with genuine horror. "We'll lose the house. We'll lose everything." "Just like I almost lost everything when the truck hit me," I said quietly and clearly. When I was alone in the ambulance, calling my mother in a panic, and she told me to deal with the consequences. "I apologized," she screamed. "You called, Grandpa," I corrected her. "You called to save your inheritance. You never apologized to me, not once." "Mom," I said, my voice strangely calm in the silence of our living room, "you took money from me for 9 years. For 9 years, I gave it away for nothing, expecting nothing in return, except maybe to treat me as someone who matters, someone worth 3 hours of your time in an emergency. You couldn't even give me that." The silence on the other end was thick as tar. Then came a cracked, pleading whisper. "Rebecca, please. We're your parents. You can't just throw us out of your life." The irony constricted my throat, almost taking my breath away. "You threw me out first. You threw out your granddaughter. You made a choice when you chose a cruise over your own daughter's emergency. Now I'm making mine." "What about family loyalty?" she breathed, and her words held all her twisted logic. "Where was your loyalty when I was cut out of the car?" My voice suddenly grew stronger, filled with a strength I didn't know I had. "Where was your loyalty when your 6-week-old granddaughter needed help?" "We can fix everything." Her tone became fussy, panicked. "We can go to a family therapist. We can—" "No." The word escaped quietly, but it was felt throughout my body. Stone hard, final, liberating. I'm tired of fixing everything. I'm tired of being the only one trying. I'm tired of paying for love that should be free. I hung up. Just hung up. And the world didn't end. The calls kept coming after that. Mom, Dad, Vanessa, even distant cousins whose voices I hadn't heard in years. All with the same melody. I'm a family wrecker. I'm vindictive. I exaggerate everything. Not one of them asked how my ribs were healing. Not one of them inquired if Emma was sleeping now. Not one of them acknowledged that the refusal to help at the crucial moment was the monstrous crack, not its consequences. I blocked them. All of them. Grandfather came every week. He sat Emma on his lap and told her about his wife, my grandmother, in a voice full of tenderness. He asked if her shoulder hurt and brought homemade soup. He was a quiet, sturdy anchor in this new, unusually calm sea. "You're doing the right thing," he said one day, watching Emma struggle to reach for a toy. "It takes courage to walk away from poison, even when it bears the family name. Especially when it bears the family name." Do you think she'll ever understand? Honestly, I doubt it. People like your mother are eternal victims in their own play. To her, you'll always be the ungrateful daughter, not the one who supported her, or the mother who was hurt and afraid. That's irreparable. It's terribly sad. Yes, but fixing her worldview isn't your responsibility. Your responsibility is to Emma, to yourself, to building the family you deserve. He was right. 3 months later, I learned, in passing, that my parents had sold the house, moved into a small rented apartment, and that my mother had taken a full-time job. For the first time in 9 years, they were learning to live within their means. I felt neither gloating nor guilty, only an emptiness where that eternally nagging wound had once been. 6 months after the accident, Marcus got a promotion. His bonus became the first contribution to Emma's college fund. Those same $4,500 that used to disappear into the black hole of their mortgage were now deposited monthly into their daughter's account. By her 18th birthday, it would be almost $1 million. $1 million she wouldn't have to work off with guilt. $1 million given simply from the heart. Because that's what parents do. Exactly 1 year after the accident, a letter arrived. Not from my mother, from Vanessa. Rebecca, I'm writing because I finally understand what you were talking about. Mom asked for help with the payments. She said it wouldn't be for long. It turned into thousands on a regular basis. I gave her $23,000. My husband is furious. And when I said stop, she called me selfish, just like she once called you. You weren't being dramatic. You were used. And the moment you stopped being useful, you became unnecessary. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I chose her. Your sister, Vanessa. I reread those lines 3 times. Some small, bruised part of me longed to exclaim, I told you so. But mostly there was just a deep, all-consuming weariness. I replied briefly, Vanessa, thank you for telling the truth. I hope you find the strength to set your boundaries. You deserve more than being a wallet. I'm not ready for communication right now, but I appreciate you admitting it. Take care, Rebecca. There was no more news. And that was okay. Emma is now 2. She's mischievous, stubborn, and adores Grandpa Joe, who pushes her on the swings and has serious conversations with her about birds. She doesn't know about her grandmother, who called her Consequence. Her world is full of those who come when called. Last week at the park, another mother asked, do the grandparents help? Oh yes, I smiled, watching my grandfather scowl comically as he tried to pick up his scattered cookies. Her grandfather is everything to us. And your parents? My smile didn't waver. That's my parent, the one who matters. That's what I've learned in these 2 years. Some people value you only for what you can give, and the moment you stop giving, they show their true colors. Trust that sign. Don't waste years trying to buy the love that was meant to be given. I sometimes think about that $486,000, about the $500,000 that disappeared into thin air. But more often, I think about what I gained by cutting that thread. Peace, self-respect, silence in my soul instead of eternal internal justification. A family built on love, not duty. That's worth more than any amount of money. Mom sends Emma a birthday card once a year. I don't open them. They sit in a box in the garage. Maybe one day Emma herself will want to read them. But for now, she has everything she needs. Parents who choose her every day, and a future built on love, not guilt. And if anyone hearing this story has also been a family ATM, paying for love that should be free, whose pain was called drama, know this. You don't have to finance mistreatment. You don't have to support people who wouldn't come to you in need. Your money, time, and soul belong to those who value you, not just your usefulness. And if by leaving you lose those who loved only what you could give, you haven't lost a family. You've lost users. That makes a huge difference. My name is Rebecca Martinez. I'm 30. I'm a mother, a wife, and a granddaughter. I, too, was once a daughter and a sister. But I'm learning. DNA isn't a ticket to the heart. The ticket to the heart is loyalty, respect, a willingness to be there. 2 years ago, my mother chose a cruise over her injured daughter and newborn granddaughter. Now she's learning to live on her salary. My grandfather rewrote his will to protect the one who needed protection, me. I'm alive. We're happy. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's a quiet, bright, real life with those who rightfully belong.